Okay.
We're good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Anthony and EJ and Dustin, for coming here. We're just going to sit here and we'll sip on our little drinks and have a little conversation. I want to talk just really about bowling. You know, everything from the industry to things about the PBA to things about just general stuff. So it's more of an open conversation. Conversation goes both ways, obviously, so feel free to chime in and ask questions too. But this is what I'm going to call it, the conversation with a group of people talking about bowling. So I'm going to get started with you, Anthony.
All right.
Why do you throw it back up?
Make easy spares. It makes spares. I started doing it, I guess, at first just because a buddy of mine struck so much with it. And I'm like, well, balling on the easy stuff. And you got 100 bowlers in the field and 5 of them are left-handed and 95 are right-handed. And you can hang out on the same part of the lane, across most of the lanes. Like, why would you not? So I think for me, it's just something that I decided to, not easy by any means, but easy enough to incorporate using the backup ball at certain times in my game.
Okay. What do you think about that?
I mean, the object of the game is knock down the pins any way possible. So if he can do it, more power to him. I mean, that just shows how talented he actually is. I don't have any problem with it. I could care less because whether he's hooking it normal or throwing a backup ball, in any situation, he still has to perform. He still has to throw the shot. Doesn't matter how he's doing it. He still has to get up and make the shot. And that's all I care about is, are you following the rules that are set forth by the USBC? If the answer is yes, everything else doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, so the first time I saw Anthony do it, he's bowling a match, a PBA match, and he's doing it, and he's bowling his left-handed too. And I'm thinking, this is the most disrespectful stuff I've ever seen. Because he's literally outstriking a person who bowls left-handed for a living. And I'm like, man, like the level of like talent is obviously there. But then for me personally, as a left-handed player, I'm like, I don't ever want to have that happen to me because like it made me feel disrespected. Like, what are you doing? You're beating me at my own game. Mm-hmm. But I get it. I think, like your mindset's just different. You're open to anything. Like if you could put your toe in the ball and kick it down the lane and strike, you probably would be like, well, watch this move, and then strike.
The funny thing about that event, I didn't wear my own shoes on Sunday.
Yeah, that's the greatest part about it. I mean, I was
What?
I watched this happen. So the night before or whatever, his shoes got put into Kyle's car.
Well, I had 12 balls. I put 6 in the paddock. And I got the conversation and forgot. Kyle thought it'd be funny to put my balls in his car. Well, Kyle shows up at 9 a.m. when the official score starts. Like frame 1. At this point, I get there like 8:15, 8:20.
And Kyle was bowling too.
Yes.
Like
Kyle
it wasn't like he should have.
He woke up 23 minutes prior to 9 a.m. He woke up like 8:30.
And the drive was like 35 minutes.
My man shaved off like 8, 10, 12 minutes on his drive.
Fair enough.
But I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I don't have any shoes. I'm like, bowling balls or whatever. We can use different balls, create different shapes. And I'm looking around the paddock and like Marshall didn't make the cut. It's 8:30. I call him. Didn't answer. I'm like, out of all people, Marshall's probably not gonna care like, if I wear his shoes. Put his shoes on, I bowl the first couple of frames at the start. I think we bowled on the same pair that morning.
I think we did too.
I had the front 4 to start, and everybody's looking at me like, dude, you don't have your own shoes. Like, it's not the ball you were using yesterday. Yeah, whatever. Kyle.
Train wreck.
He leaves the 1-2-4 the first frame. I remember watching it. There's Alpha Crux off the 1-2-4. Makes it. Happiest guy on planet Earth. He's like, barely made it. I got 7 spare to start. Like, how can it be bad? Like, there's a 3-bagger, and he gets up on the approach in, like, the 5th frame. And I guess a frame or two before that, Connor Pickford had said, you hear what happened to Simon's balls? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, Simon's missing 6 balls, his shoes, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward a couple frames later, Kyle's on the approach. He stops. sets his ball down, runs to his bag, grabs the keys, says, "Jim, Simo's stuff is in my car. I'll explain later."
Oh my goodness, you got it.
Runs out there. Jim's like, "What do you need?" I said, "Really, just grab my spare ball." I said, "Grab my spare ball and maybe the Optimus." I said, "I don't need my shoes. I'm not going to switch. I got a 4-bagger. Bowled whatever, bowled however many games in the catcher's round. Put my shoes on for match play. It's bothering my foot." I'm like, right now I got an extra pair of shoes. I'm going to put those back on because my feet weren't hurting. Put his shoes on, end up winning the tournament.
Won the tournament.
With somebody else
So,
in
yeah,
Marshall.
Marshall's shoes.
not only did I back it up to win, but I also did it wearing somebody else's shoes.
Now,
That are,
Straight G.
like 2 sizes too big.
I think Marshall's like 11, 11 and a half. I wear 9 in bowling shoes.
So like 2 sizes too big.
What? That's just crazy.
Yeah. There's no way I could have done
That's
that.
crazy.
I mean, there's no way I could have bowled with shoes that big on to begin with. And try to win throwing a freaking backup ball. No chance.
There wasn't a care in the world on Sunday, that's for sure. I'm like, how gonna get any worse?
That's awesome.
So I want to know what your guys' opinion on the state of the tour right now. A lot of urethane going down the lane. Do you care, don't care, indifferent? What do you think?
I'm pretty indifferent about it. I mean, again, it just goes back to you got to do whatever you got to do to be the best that you can. If that means throwing urethane balls, if that means throwing surface, I mean, whatever it is, am I going to be happy about it sometimes? No. But at the end of the day, you're trying to win. You're trying to, pay for your house. You're trying to feed your family. I mean, it's all about what I have to do to ensure that I'm going to do all of those things. And if someone gets mad at me, well, that's not my problem because they're not feeding my family. I am.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it is what it is. All of us get upset about certain things that do happen, but we all do certain things that make somebody else mad too. So it comes
nature
full
of the beast.
circle, and just it is what it is. You just got to deal with what's in front of you, and hopefully you can deal with it better than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I don't care what it takes to strike.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I'm indifferent. Like, yeah, do I feel like sometimes it's used when probably not needed? Yes, but I think we see, like, it goes back to you saying there's times where guys don't need to use balls that are shiny to start, and guess what guys are doing? And vice versa. So it's like you just kind of got to deal with what, at the end of the day, I throw my shot, he throws his shot, you throw your shot, you throw your shot. We don't throw it for anybody else, so
Yep.
it doesn't matter what you're using.
So on that same topic, purple hammer, advantage or no advantage? Because neither of you have a purple hammer.
I think it's an advantage because I'll tell you right now there are multiple people, not even just on the professional level, that have that ball. You let them throw any other, we can throw the same balls and they're not going to beat me. And like, I feel like I've seen enough bowling balls go down the lane. I mean, you've designed them, bowled a long time. There's never been a ball that has changed bowling the way that purple hammer has. There's been, the game breaker was a deal and stuff like that, but in terms of not necessarily making irrelevant players relevant, but there are definitely some bowlers who are a better bowler strictly because of that bowling ball.
Yeah, I think it's made a difference a few times. It is what it is. I mean, over the years, and we can't change it. USBC has changed their specifications now, in part to that particular bowling ball. So it is what it is. There are a few guys that I think wouldn't have the careers that they have. I'm not saying they would never won, but I don't think they would have as many wins if that ball never existed. I think most of them would have figured out a way to do it some other way. But
I've only been old enough to not really understand stuff for 10 years, but I mean, just talking to people, there's never really been a ball, except for when you go from the plastic, the rubber to the urethane, that's really changed the way bowling is. Like, that ball got discontinued, I mean, there were people searching for that thing.
Correct.
Like, so I mean, it is what it is. Like at the end of the day, they still got to throw it. Like it's not like we're sitting here holding the button and it's going wherever. So, and you can't use it on every pattern. So I'll take my chances in the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Simon and I are talented enough that over the course of a career, yeah, we'll probably lose that ball a few times, maybe more than we want to, but over that course of 20 years, I would take our chances at winning over that ball more so than we would lose to it. So, does it make a difference? Yeah, a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, for us personally, probably not that much.
Because I mean, most of the guys balling on tour strike with anything. They don't just go from putting a ball in your hand to hitting your target. They don't. What's the one joke somebody used to say? I didn't use the talent bit. So,
yeah.
I didn't use the talent bit for that one. I didn't drill any of that.
Yeah, I use that one every now and then too. I'm like, oh, EJ, where are you going? I'm going out to try to drill some talent. It's worked a couple of times, but not very often.
You have any questions on that?
I mean, I just think that ball is interesting from talking with you about that ball specifically. That ball does crazy things. I mean, at some points it looks like super continuous reactive. So I don't think I have any questions about it. It's just, I mean, I don't know how to feel.
I mean, it's a head scratcher. There's times where I've watched and I'm using a urethane ball and I'm like, I got 6 of them here and they just won't do that. I got old urethane balls, new urethane balls in the middle, and they just don't. I mean, like you said, it makes you sit back and go what is it? Because Game Breaker was really the last ball that. Prior to that was this ball right here.
You need to have one.
Yeah, this changed the game.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I think mentally my standpoint on it is I know that they deemed it illegal, especially those couple runs or one run or whatever it is. Do I think it should be in play? No. Do I have one? Yeah. Because if they're going to say it's legal, you better believe that I'm going to...
if you're not, if they're going to give you a tool,
Yeah.
Right.
why would
Yeah,
you not?
and all the conversations we've ever had, it's never been personal attacks to anyone. 'Cause
Right.
It's not their fault.
Right.
They didn't make the
Right.
bowling ball.
Right.
They didn't make the
They weren't
specifications.
purposely going out
They
trying
didn't
to cheat.
They
Yeah.
didn't, make the rules
Right.
or break the rules.
Right.
They're just throwing the bowling ball.
Correct. And I have no problem with the people that are throwing it. All I'm saying is if they're going to say something is illegal and then come back and say it's legal, I think something is
Yeah,
wrong
I mean,
there.
there's a bigger issue there than the ball itself.
Right. There needs to be some sort of consistency when it comes
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
how that's brought across.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
I think that ball does give certain players an advantage at times. And I think, just from what I know, the difference between the black hammer and the purple hammer is that the black hammer was made to a specification of hardness, and the purple hammer was made to a different specification of hardness. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that ball was purposely made illegal. I don't believe that. But I believe that ball was definitely intentionally made to be softer. Intentionally made to be softer. And with urethane, making it softer gives you this shape that you can't mimic with reactive. You can't get there. And I think that because of that, certain styles of players, certain players, it is an advantage. As a amateur player, I've got one because I believe that I've seen enough people throw it that I'm like, well, if they all got one and they're all striking, then maybe I should get me one
Right.
too.
That's exactly why I bought it. It's well, looks good for other people. I mean, I might as well. I usually carry urethane as it is, so why not carry that one?
Yeah.
But I'm the same way with the purple tank ball too, though, because I was like, well, I mean, I'm seeing people talk about better ball, best ball, favorite ball, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, let me drill one of them, and I'm like, this ball's gonna roll like crap. I don't like it, and I threw it. I'm like, this ball's different. I like this ball. I believe that ball in particular, personally, is more usable for the lower rev rate guy because it does shape like urethane, but it doesn't shape like low rev rate urethane. You know what I'm saying? I've got both, and I'm like, well, that ball shapes more for me. I could use it a lot more per se than I could the purple. Whereas like I could see if I was a higher, I'm at 350. If I'm at 400, 450, 500, then that purple is by far an option that you should have because you still keep that shape. But at my rev rate, it's hard to use that ball. I'm always going to plaque 7 every now and again. I just don't have enough rev rate. But I can see why the guys on tour can do some good things with it.
Yeah, and I look at it too, like I have this conversation with people all the time. You know, we talking about urethane because it's such a staple in bowling now. I watched obviously me and my brother are throwing exactly the same bowling balls. And we normally drill them pretty much the same way. Well, I watch him throw it, and it's like his ball does exactly what I wish I could get mine to do. So I think it has a lot to do with like how you throw the ball too, because we're throwing the same exact bowling balls, and I can't do even close to what my brother does with the purple tank. I can't do what he does with it because my ball roll doesn't make it do what his does. And it just, the way he throws the ball matches up with the urethane ball so well. He's able to get them to pick up all the time. They stop going right, but they don't overhook. Mine don't, they stop going right, but they overhook. And then it makes me move. And, you know, and that's just, I think it has to do with, it has nothing to do with the bowling ball. It has to do with how my ball roll matches up to the bowling ball itself. And I've drilled them a million different ways. I use them every now and then. When they're good, I strike all day with them. Like I used it at the Masters in one of the matches, a couple of matches towards the end, and bowling 720 and 750, and crowbarring them. And the Masters was really, really hard this year. So I don't think it has anything to do with it. Just like I think ball rolls just match up so much to the way the urethanes see the lane.
I would be going back to the purple hammer. I would be interested to see if the new one is the same as the old one. I know they have marketed it as such, but do you think that's a possibility?
Before you answer, because I like ties into him. How much of a role does balls being poured here in Hopkinsville in comparison to being poured in Mexico with humidity variations,
right,
temperature variations, and all that stuff?
So
how much are you able to control something being inside?
So I don't know how they're making the ball at Brunswick, but I absolutely know how they were making the ball at Ebonite since I used to work there, right? So I believe that the Ebonite process did not have as much control over the temperature, humidity, and those kind of things. And that's why you saw these balls that came out that ended up being soft. I don't believe that was intentional. I believe that it was just what happens with a product that's very hard to make, that's very, very different, and that because of those two things, I mean, this is what happens when you have process variation. Now, here's what's interesting. I was very curious about that too. I was like, could they make the same ball in Muskegon? So I know for a fact that the guy who knew how to make that ball does work there. So formula-wise, if it's 1, 2, 3 components, which it is, those can be bought and sent to Muskegon, right? I also believe that Brunswick has the ability to use those materials, and then whether or not they can keep control of them or not is up in the air. But use those materials to make a ball that is close. Is it going to be 1,000% the same? I don't know. We've got some. We're going to drill them. I've got an old one. We're going to try it. We're going to find out. But I believe that the ability to reproduce that ball is high because they have the people that knew how to make it, and they can get the materials. And unlike reactive balls, urethane balls are a little bit different when it comes to making them. And because of that, I believe that at least it's a fair shot. I mean, we've seen everybody say they're the same. I mean, everybody that I've seen has said, yeah, they're the same. Of course, if they weren't the same, the people that are saying they're the same would still say they're the same because they're the people that are getting these balls for free that are supposed to say they're the same.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out. But at the end of the day, I think the opportunity is as good as it could possibly be for it to be the same. I will also tell you this. There was a rule change that USBC made that said that going after a certain date, all balls have to be a point harder than what they used to be.
73.
Right? Right, so they moved the hardness from 72 to 73. And I also know that if you go look at the approval for the new Purple Hammer, it was before that date. So the opportunity still exists for that ball to be under the old spec, still legal, but under the old spec. So we're going to find out is the short answer, but I believe that the opportunity is there.
Yeah. I saw a couple of guys in Columbus had it, and just watching it go down the lane, obviously it was on not, PBA patterns. It was on modified house pattern, but it didn't look the same going down the lane to me.
Okay.
It looked different. It looked to me like there was a little bit of resin in it, the way it reacted. Because as we've seen before, Brunswick, all their urethane balls have resin in them. Like they've done all this 80-20 stuff, the 90-10. Like that's kind of been their MO. So I'm hard pressed to, like, how do I not think that there is some in that ball when visually when it went down the lane, it looked like there was reactive. This is what you've done in the past. I think it's just maybe there's a very small percentage just to make sure that it did hook as much as the other one. Obviously you said it was before the hardness thing, but maybe they did try to make it a little bit harder on purpose and then added a little bit of reactive to it just to make sure it hooked. So I don't know. That was just my observation.
That's what this is about. So let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about layouts. How many layouts do you have? And how many layouts do you have currently in your bag that you would go to a typical tournament at? How many different layouts?
As of late, 1, maybe 2. Been like fishing in. I was always a guy, pre-weight holes, I drilled balls the same way. I drilled pin over the bridge, pin under the bridge, weight holes in the same spot. Let the balls, there's so many balls nowadays, let them kind of dictate it. Now without the weight holes, I've been, who knows how many number of different layouts I've drilled and like shuffled through. And I've kind of found one that I like to use, and then kind of getting back into the old ways of letting the balls really dictate. Because now there's just them being so many options that I feel like 15, 20 years ago, taking balls and really doing, like, messing with the layouts could really get so many different reactions. Now there's so many different options that instead of having to try to do it with layouts, you can just drill another ball that's supposed to fit that slot you're looking for.
And I agree with that. I got 2 or 3 that I use all the time. Obviously, I'll drill balls different ways for specific reasons, but I normally get, when new balls come out, like I'll get 2. Like they send me a 2-pack. I get then I'll just drill more whenever we're on tour because I drill like pin up ball, pin down ball, like above the bridge, below the bridge. That's how I drill my first 2 every single time. I drill them exactly the same way every single time. And that way I can go see, when I get these new balls, how do they roll? How do they roll compared to the other balls that I've drilled exactly the same way for the last 10 years, right? So I got Venom Shocks, Ghosts, like my staple balls that I've been using for the last year, get a new one, drill them exactly the same way. What do they do compared to those? So I know exactly where the ball's
Where it fits.
where it's going to fit, because obviously it gets put on the chart, but that's on paper. Right, that gives you a general idea of what the bowling ball is supposed to do. But everyone's different. Their roll's different. Their tilt, their axis rotation, their speed, their rev rate. So all these factors are going to go into where the ball is really going to fit. But on the chart, it gives you a good idea where it's going to be. So, I get a bowling ball. I have a pretty good idea. We probably have a better inclination over most people because we do it for a living. We do it every single day. We know what to expect from the bowling balls that are coming and where they're probably going to fit. But sometimes they do change a little bit.
Now, with you having a shop and you being a entrepreneur now, what if somebody came to you and said, EJ, Simo, I'm building a 6-ball arsenal, all reactive, we'll just say. How many layouts do you recommend I do? Do you say 2, 3?
Yeah, it won't be more than 3. Because to build an arsenal, you have to have different bowling balls.
Right.
So you're going to have basically probably 2 high-end balls, a pearl and a solid, 2 medium high balls of pearl and solid, and 2 middle balls that are pearl and solid. That's probably where I would go with that if we're not using any urethane at all. So, you go, let's say we'll do the solid one. We're going to do pin down because you want to get it through the fronts a little bit better. Pearl one we'll do up, so that way it whips a little bit harder, especially for people with lower rev rates. We'll do stuff like that. So it's going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 layouts on a 6-ball arsenal, because you really only get into the other layouts when you're drilling a ball for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
So we're using like general layouts that we know work. Obviously, if it's somebody that I've worked with before, I have a pretty good idea of what kind of layouts work for them. A and B. And I'm going to do A and B for them across those 6 bowling balls because I know A and B works for them. And we're just going to drill 6 different bowling balls to fill all the gaps
Yeah.
for general purposes.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's kind of what we got to earlier. Is now if you can go and, I mean, they're the smallest in terms of like ball releases. How many balls you got? You got 12, 15 you can go through.
Yeah, something like that.
That alone, right there, like, I mean, I look at if I was with other companies where there's 7 brands I would go crazy because my head already hurts thinking about what to do. The how to drill it is eliminated. It's what do I drill, and then that's just kind of the way I've bowled the last few years. They gave me a good point. They said I bowl like my parents wouldn't buy me a new ball. They said here's the ball you figure out how to make it do different things. And so that's something that I've transitioned into being older, and like I do this one ball and I start making the manipulations that I want to do, as opposed to a layout you can think it can do one thing, but like you said, for me it's going to do one thing, for him it's going to do the other, and vice versa.
Yeah, and then when you get to the level of the elite on tour, some of the best in the world, more times than not we're using our physical game to manipulate the bowling ball rather than just drilling something out. Now there's other guys that will just go drill and drill and drill and drill bowling balls because they can do different things, but they'd rather just change bowling balls. See, Simon and I, we much rather throw it differently, because when I'm throwing this bowling ball, and I've been using it for 2 games, I bowl 250, 250, and I get to game 3 of that, and it goes ring 10, ring 10, ring 10. Well, I know that ball is doing the right thing, so what do I have to do differently to get the strike? Because I know that ball, that core and that cover are matching up so perfectly right now. I need to manipulate what I'm doing a little bit, because when I know I get it right, that ball's going to strike every single time. So that's the way I kind of go about it, and I'm sure he's probably the same way, that he'd rather stay in the same ball if it's still going down the lane the right way. It's just not getting through the pins maybe the right way. The first thing is going to be adjust, and then if you can't do anything, then it's a ball change. It's going to be us first and then a ball change. And I would say most of the guys on tour are probably do that first. It's a move, a physical adjustment, whether it's roll it more, spin it more, harder, slower, whatever it may be. That's probably going to be the first thing majority of the time. Not every time, but majority of the time that's probably going to be the first thing.
All right. I think that's a good spot to take our first break. I think we're going to do some more deep diving on some of these topics. So we're going to stop and we'll come back and do some more.
All right.